Hello everyone. So today I'm going to talk about how to install Habitat Home. It's a kind of a new solution that was built as kind of a demo of different ways to do personalization, marketing features, and other key features that have come out for Sitecore, such as XXA and DEF for Data Exchange Framework. So to get started, we're just going to kind of go down this path of all the things that we have to install. First part obviously is setting up your Sitecore 9 instance. And then after that, you have to go through quite a few modules that you have to install on this Sitecore 9 instance that we're using. One difference about this setup that I'm going to use is I'm going to not follow the default paths that they recommend. I'm going to use my own paths for this. This is probably a more common scenario for those that are probably playing with Habitat Home. Another key piece I would like to note about Habitat Home is just like Habitat, that was also kind of a example of Helix. These are just examples of different implementations. You wouldn't want to necessarily use them for a new project that you're building, especially Habitat Home, which is full of marketing examples and things like that. You wouldn't want to necessarily have those in your initial instance because a lot of them won't apply to your organization. Whereas you might want to have a Habitat Home instance up so you can see an example of how you'd want to do some of these things. So let's get started. I'm actually going to use Syphilis to install my Sitecore 9 instance. I'm going to use a Sitecore 9.0.1 instance. So the first thing I'm going to do is I got to find where I've installed it. I think it's actually going to be here. If I go to the C drive, and then I go to, I think it's under Sif. Yeah, so here's Syphilis. If I open up Syphilis, and basically what we have here is some settings. I already have most of these defined. If you're not sure how to install Sitecore 9, all you need to do is go watch my video on Sitecore 9 install with Syphilis. Or you can use the Sitecore install framework, which is basically what's running behind the scenes with this. And you can install your Sitecore 9.0.1 instance. Sitecore Habitat Home also runs on 9.0.2 from what I've heard. They potentially have another branch for the version that runs on 9.0.2. But this, I think, is important just to show on the most stable version of Habitat Home, just so you know how to do it. And if you want to do it on 9.0.2, then you can go ahead and do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this just Habitat Home. So whatever you want to call your instance, you can just provide that information here on the install prefix, and then it's going to append .sc or .xconnect for the different folder. By default, we're doing a XP single topology, which basically means on the Sitecore side, the CD, the CM, the reporting, and the processing roles are all going to be on one IIS instance. The XConnect, all that's going to be on one instance as well, the search and all the other things that are as part of XConnect. So we basically come up with two websites in the end, the two IIS sites that you're going to see inside it. I'm going to leave my information for solar alone. That's not really needed for this. I think that's it. So the next step is I'm going to uncheck the generate files only. And I'm just going to go ahead and select generate files and install. All right, now you can see that it has completed. It took 23 minutes and 4 seconds, so luckily I didn't sit here and make you watch that entire process. If you have any issues with this installation, feel free to reach out to the Slack community or the Sitecore Stack Exchange to get questions and answers. Potentially your questions might already have answers, so yeah, so don't necessarily comment on this post. Obviously go out to better sources where you might actually get a good response. Anyway, so I'm going to click OK. And so the next two things I really want to do is test my instance. So if I go back to my browser, click on that. So I'll go to the yellow screen of death, and I will go to Habitat Home.sc, and now you can see I have my Sitecore instance. For now, it's pretty empty, but if I go to /Sitecore, this will take me to the login page where I can log in. And I'm just going to use the default login of admin B. And here we are in a default Sitecore 9.0.1 installation, so nothing to do with Habitat Home currently. So the next step is what I want to do is I actually want to clone the GitHub repository. So to get to it, all you need to do is go to /Sitecore Habitat Home content. If you just search for Habitat Home in the search or jump to section of the GitHub website, then it will take you to that as well. It will actually hint it to you. So all I want to do is actually just clone it. So I'm just going to click down, I'm going to click copy. Now I've copied that path. Now I'm going to start up a Visual Studio instance. You need to have Visual Studio 2017 in order to install Habitat Home. I'll click yes. And now my Visual Studio instance has started. So the next thing is I want to add that. I basically want to clone it into my local system. So there's various ways you can do that. You can have Tortoise Git on your computer, and you can go that route to clone a repository. You can use Git Bash or some other command line operation to do that, or you can use Visual Studio Extensions for Git, and you can just go down here to clone, paste in that URL that we took, and what I'm going to do is actually change this directory. I'm going to change it to development. This is usually where I put stuff. You want to select the recursively clone submodules, and then you just click the clone button. And then you give it a couple minutes or seconds, depending on your speed of your internet connection, and then you should have a cloned repo on your local file system in the path that you specified. And this will represent the master branch of that repo, or default branch of that repo, which typically is master. And there we are. Now currently we don't actually have the solution open, so if we go back to this and we click on then you'll see an option for the solution. Double click and it will open that solution. Now we're not going to really do a whole lot with this right now. We're going to get back to this once we install these packages or modules, Sitecore modules, into our Sitecore 9.0.1 installation. So if we go back to the browser and back to our Sitecore instance, our habitathome.se, the next step is we're going to click on desktop. And there's a few different ways you can install packages, but this is the preferred way I like to do it. You could probably automate this process as well if you wanted to. If we click on development tools, installation wizard, we're going to go ahead and start going down the path of all the things that we need to install. The very first thing we're going to need is something called the Sitecore Powershell Extensions. I haven't really done many videos, if any videos, on this topic. At some point I would like to, but I haven't found much time to do that yet. But it's basically, if any of those developers out here have worked with PowerShell, you know the advantages of using it. There's a interface that's within the Sitecore interface that's just like using PowerShell ISE or anything like that, and allows you to write commands on the fly. So what I want to do is I'm looking for that module. I have a lot of stuff on this computer, so I am looking for the 4.7.2 for Sitecore 8. If you don't have this already downloaded, you can go out and get this from the Sitecore Marketplace. Just go to Sitecore Marketplace. You'll find that actually there's most popular Sitecore modules in the bottom right-hand corner. And if you look there, you should see SPE as one of the top 5, but that's somewhere you can get it. And you just download the version you need. You'll notice there's a lot of versions in there, but 4.7.2 is the one we need for this. Don't worry about the fact that it says Sitecore 8. It's just there's a Sitecore 7 version and there's a Sitecore 8 version, and there's really no Sitecore 9 version yet. 8 works with 9, so I'm just going to select overwrite existing files. There isn't any existing files because I haven't uploaded this. As you saw, I actually just installed it. I click next. It's going to tell me things I need to do before installing. Nothing that really pertains to this. And it's saying things you might want to back up, etc. If you've got a previous version, you might need to back up some things. But and who it's by, and information about it. Now I'm just going to click on install. All right, now that that's complete, as you can see, it shows options to restart Sitecore client or restart the Sitecore server. All we really need to do here is just restart the client. So we'll just keep that option checked, click close. And then after a few seconds, because it's been quite a while since I last made any changes, we just need to log in again. The next step is to install the next prerequisite. So we needed the Sitecore Powershell extensions so that we could install SXA. So SXA is the next requirement. So if I go to Development Tools, Installation Wizard, and I choose Upload Package. Now SXA is something you would download from Sitecore directly. So not from the marketplace, but from, if you do a search for Sitecore Experience Accelerator version 1.6 is what we need for this, then you can download that option. You would obviously need to be a certified developer in order to download, or work for a partner, or have a Sitecore license with the Sitecore Experience Accelerator version 1.6. Click open, click next. I'm gonna click that option, it doesn't really matter. Click upload, close, click next. Again, it's just going to give me options, things to specify. I'm just going to accept the license agreement. There's some prerequisites. We've already installed that. We have Sitecore 9.0.1 and we have Sitecore Powershell Extensions 4.7.2 or 4.7. It doesn't matter. And click next, install. Now we'll wait for this to install. All right, that has completed. SXA is now installed. So the same steps as before, I'm just going to restart the Sitecore client. Once that is done, I'm going to go and now go back to install the next module or package. So I'll click on Installation Wizard. The next thing that we need to install is going to be Data Exchange Framework. We're going to be trying to install version 2.0.1. To do that, we're just going to click on Upload Package. Keep in mind, like I said before, these are Sitecore modules that we're technically installing, so you can get those from the Sitecore downloads area, the Exchange Framework, as well as Sitecore's Experience Accelerator. So I'll select Choose a New Package. Like I said, I've downloaded all these previously, so all I'm going to do is find them. So I am looking for the Sitecore Data Exchange Framework. That's going to be, sometimes these have weird names. There we go. Data Exchange Framework 2.0.1. That's what we want. So I will select Open, click Next. I'll overwrite the files, even though it shouldn't exist already. Click Close, click Next to install. Gives me some options, tells me what's required. We already have all these things. We didn't necessarily need Sitecore's Experience Accelerators install Data Exchange Framework. Those are not prerequisites of that, but it is prerequisites for our Habitat Home. So it's going to go ahead and install, and I'll come back when it's done. All right, now we've completed the Data Exchange Framework installation. As before, we're just going to restart the Sitecore client. It's been a few minutes since the last time I was here, so it's probably going to tell me I need to log in again. Yep. So we'll just log in, and then B, and this time I'll check to remember me, so this shouldn't be an issue anymore. And now we're going to go back to Development Tools, Installation Wizard. And the next thing that we need to install, and some of these I don't think are necessary, need to be in order, these next three, but we're just going to follow the order that the Habitat Home GitHub README describes that should be followed in this order. And I will list also as in the description what the prerequisites are and what I installed and the steps I took as text. But the next one we need is, if we click on Upload Package, we're going to go back to our folders. These again all are available on the Sitecore products page where you would download modules provided by Sitecore. So choose file. Like I said, I already installed these previously. So I am looking for the Sitecore provider for DEF. I think that's what I accidentally almost used last time. So the Sitecore provider for Data Exchange Framework 2.0.1. Click Open. Next. overwrite. One thing we could do is we could upload all the files at once and then we just select them. So we don't necessarily need to go through this process, but you're going to get a screen where it's going to show what you need to have already installed. These are the things that are required in this order. So you do need to have Data Exchange Framework already installed. You need to have Sitecore 9.0.1 installed. And like I said previously, Data Exchange Framework is not requiring that we have SXA installed. So SXA and Data Exchange Framework are two separate things, but are required for the Habitat Home project. So now we'll wait for this to install. All right, the Sitecore provider for Data Exchange Framework has now been completed. So I'm just going to click Close, click Start, Development Tools, Installation Wizard, and now I'm going to do Upload Package. And just like before, I'm going to select a pre-existing module that I've already downloaded. The next one I'm going to install is the SQL provider for Data Exchange Framework. So these are different providers that provide different functionality for Data Exchange Framework. So now I'm installing the one for SQL access. So let's go down to the Sitecore provider last time. So now we're looking for the SQL provider. SQL provider. Open. Next. Overwrite. Upload. Next. Saying all the prerequisites. Again, just the things that we've previously talked about. All right, we just completed the SQL provider for DEF. So let's go ahead and install the XConnect provider as well. So same steps as before. We're just going to go to the installation wizard and we're going to do an upload package. Choose file. Probably it's going to be down here. XConnect provider for Data Exchange Framework 0.0.1. Next. Right. Upload. Next. And all this prerequisites similar as before. Now all these providers that we're installing, they're not all required by default. If you're doing something with XConnect and Data Exchange Framework, you would only need the XConnect provider and Data Exchange Framework. But obviously, again, Habitat Home requires all three of these. All right, as you can see, it's completed the XConnect provider for the Exchange Framework. So I'm just going to follow the same process before. Give it a few seconds to reinitialize, and then I'm going to go to Development Tools, Installation Wizard, and now I'm going to install Microsoft Dynamics 365 for Sales Provider for DEF. So I'm going to go Upload Package and click that. Choose File. Dynamics provider for Data Exchange Framework 2.0.1. Open. Click Next. Overwrite that file. Click Upload. And then click Next. And it's saying some of the things I need. One thing you want to do is copy this. This is something we need to add to our main web.config. And this will allow us to, it's some dependent assemblies that should be added to it. But I'm going to add it later. I'm not going to do it now. So I'm just going to say Next, Install. All right, that has completed. So I'm just going to restart the Sitecore client. This is a lot of the same old stuff we're doing over and over and over again as we install all these dependencies. So back to Installation Wizard. And now we're going to actually install our last requirement, which is the Sitecore Connect for Microsoft Dynamics for Data Exchange Framework 2.0.1. So I'm going to do Upload Package, and this would be the other package that we saw on the list. These are all available on the Sitecore's product developer network. I will provide a list of these and where you can get them in the description. Connect for Microsoft Dynamics. Open. Click Next. Overwrite. Upload. Same process. Same results. Different module technically. This one has a lot more requirements. So this is when we get to this one, we need to have installed quite a few things. We need the Data Exchange Framework. We need the Sitecore provider for Data Exchange. We need the XConnect provider for Data Exchange. We need a SQL provider for Data Exchange. and we need the Microsoft Dynamics provider for the Exchange. So basically, all the things that we've installed up to this point, we need, except for we do not need Sitecore Experience Accelerator. That's the only one that's not required. So we don't necessarily need that to use this, but it's required, like I said, for Habitat Home. So once this completes installing, the next step will be to go into our project and make some changes, because a lot of our things are by default. There's a certain path that it uses, and if you go to the GitHub, you can refer to what the correct path would be. So when you're setting up your environment, you can actually use that path if you want to. But if you want to just do it the way I'm doing it in this video, where I'm using a custom path, then you just need to make sure you do these next steps so that you have so that it can actually create and publish that site. The other thing we still need to do is configure HTTPS for our Habitat Home.sc site, a binding for it. This isn't necessarily totally required, especially for your local environment. It's required for Unicorn and the Unicorn script, but we can get around that if we really wanted to. But I'm going to go ahead and just use a self-signed cert that I've already made a trusted authorization on my machine, and that's kind of the same process you would have to do for this. You'd have to create a self-signed cert and make sure it's a trusted authentication for your machine. All right, it's now completed the last dependency that we needed. So I'm going to restart the client, and now we are good to go with everything we needed. Just to take a look, we can go into the content editor real quick. And here we are. And then if we go under templates, you can see now we have these data exchange folders. We also have feature, foundation, and project. These are for SXA. So Experience Accelerator basically uses the Helix standardizations provided by Sitecore. And we can now, if we wanted to, start creating our site. I will note that all the default items are existing in our Sitecore instance. We may want to remove those at some point, but when we install the Habitat Home and get everything installed in here. But well, for now, we're just going to leave that as is. So the next part is getting this site to run with HTTPS. I have a slight problem with my local machine because I don't know exactly which SSL cert is the correct one. I tried to actually look at this while I was paused to see which one was the correct one. So I think I figured out which one it was. But obviously, to set up an HTTPS for your IIS website, all you need to do is go to your bindings, and then under bindings do add, and then you can HTTP binding or an HTTPS binding. For this, we want HTTPS, and the host name doesn't necessarily matter. It's just going to be, if you leave it empty, it's just going to be the anything that comes to the site. And in that case, it will be the habitathome.sc. So it could be this one. It could be a new certificate. It could be internal trusted. I'm not too sure, but I'm thinking it's Habitat Home.sc. It seems like the clear option to choose, but that doesn't always mean it is. And I'm actually just going to specify, in case if you already have a SSL cert installed on another one of your websites and you try to add another binding that's blank, you're going to run into issues with that. So I will just do it like this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a incognito window. If I don't already have one open, I don't believe I do. Actually, I do. Let's close that. And I'm going to start a new one. And I'm just going to go to HTTPS habitathome.sc. And sometimes I might actually have to close all my browsers. It's finicky at times. Sometimes you just have to close everything and start off from scratch from Chrome to get the HTTPS to be recognized. It says it's not secure. Let's just take a look at the certificate. So it's saying that the root is not trusted, so I don't think that's my cert. Let's go back to here. I could take Habitat Home and make it trusted. One thing you can do is you can go to manage computer certificates, which you can do just by searching for certificates. And let's see if I can find where that certificate's installed. So we're working on Habitat SE. I believe we can move it up. I don't know why I have two here, which is confusing. So I have one here already, so it's kind of confusing. I just copied it from the personal and put it into underneath trusted root certification authorities, which basically makes it a trusted cert on this machine. And I'm going to leave it as what it was previously set to. And now I'm going to probably have to restart my browser. Restart HTTPS home.sc. There we go. Now it's showing us a secure certificate. So like I said, if we hadn't done this step when we go to run our unicorn process inside our Habitat Home, we would have run into an issue with it complaining about it's not a secure connection. We could obviously go into the Gulp file and change that to use HTTP instead of HTTPS, or we could go and just do a full publish and then go into Sitecore and go into unicorn.aspx and just do a complete sync, which we might end up doing anyways because there's problems with the sync anyways from command line because of how many items it has to do. It has to do quite a bit of items. And now you'll notice that we really need to access the Gulp files, and it's saying no task found. Now this is caused by the fact that we have a bunch of node packages that aren't actually installed currently. There's two ways that you can do this. The first one is that you can go to the root of your project in a command line or PowerShell or Git Bash or whatever it may be, whatever your preferred command line tool is, and you can do a npm install, and that will install everything. Another thing you can do if you're working out of Visual Studio 2017 is you can actually go and find the Gulp file, or actually the packages.json file. This is the node configuration, and you can just do a Control S. And the Control S behind the scenes will actually start downloading whatever has been configured inside this node package. And whenever you open most projects, look for a package.json file. So if you're working with Habitat, if you're working with the Helix starter kit that I've been working on, if you're working with Helix Base, any of the projects out there, it's going to be the same process. You need to make sure that you have your node configuration, whatever's been configured for your node packages or your Node.js packages for your Gulp files. You need to make sure you've downloaded those, or else you're going to get errors of saying that you can't run your inside your task runner explorer. You're just not going to have any tasks. Also note, if you don't have task runner explorer down here, you just can go to view, and I believe it's under other windows. There is a task runner explorer option, so just make sure that's always running. I like to always have it there because there's always seems to be, every project I work on now, especially in the Sitecore community, has some sort of Gulp file defined where you can start defining commands that can help you get things done. One of the guys commented recently about doing a video on the Gulp files and describing what they are and how they work. I plan on doing a quick demonstration of what they are, what kind of things you can put in them, what kind of things they help with, and some of the true power of what you can really do with it. You can always, you don't necessarily have to use Gulp, which is a task tool. Should be almost done. One way you can check, go back to the task runner and do the little refresh button. And I guess it is done because now it's showing you all the tasks that are available. Now, most of these tasks are related to publishing. You can use a Gulp MS build, which allows you to actually publish or build your project and then publish all the files out to your website using Gulp. Instead of doing a build up here, you'd be doing a build up down here, either running a default or running these specific tasks individually. And then there's some other things that you could also run in here as well. So now that that's done, the next step that it asks you to do in the requirements is typically run default. Now, we don't want to do that quite yet. What we want to do is make some changes to the configurations so that it matches what our default instance is. So habitathome.se is not the common place. Also, this requires you to also place your files in a certain location as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into Gulp Config first. And you'll notice that there's a lot of paths in here, and these are just configurations for your local environment. And this, again, is a lot like you'll see in a lot of configurations. Habitat, the Habitat has it like this, the Helix base, the starter kit that I'm building, they all have a configuration file that specifies paths and things like that. We need to change these paths because these are not correct for our local environment. First, the instance URL is not habitat.dev.local. It's going to be Habitat Home. And here again, if you were running a non-HTTPS site, if you had decided not to go with the certificate using a self-signed cert, then you could change this to HTTP and then you'd be fine. You just need to be aware of that. There could be some issues there. So our site environment is just going to be habitathome.se. And the difference for us here is our habitat home.xconnect. And that's it for this file. There's a few other files that we need to change. There's one called publish settings, which doesn't actually show up here. Kind of bugs me when they're not, when they're configuration specific. And what we can do is do open file. And this will take us into the root. And then we can find our publish settings.targets file. And we need to change this as well. This is not our target. Our target is Habitat Home. Save. Again, if you don't have HTTPS to define, you can just remove it there as well. And then the last place is in our projects file. So in the projects file underneath common, there is a app config include project. And then there's this Z common website dev settings. So this is settings specifically for your environment. So this tells us where does our files that we're currently working on, where do they live? And that's pretty much what we are working on here. So if we go to Windows, Development, and then we go to Habitat, Sitecore Habitat Home Content, and then Source, we could just copy this path. That is correct path. Why do we need that? That is actually used for Unicorn. So what it's going to do is all our Unicorn YAML files or the rainbow files, they're going to be located in this location underneath source. And there's instructions on where to find those within each project. There's a website.serialization file. All right, so that's it. And now we're pretty much ready to go. So the next step is actually running default. So you can right click and just say run. Or another option that you have is you can be inside, if you're a command line user and you love command line, you can actually go in, be in the root of your directory and do a gulp, just run gulp without any additional tasks. You can specify the task as default, but if you don't, it will use default by default. That makes sense. If you wanted to run a specific task, then you could also do that as well. There is some things in here that are run for Sitecore's Experience Commerce, and some of those being quick deploy, things like that. So we're going to skip over that instruction for this video. While it was running, I did actually have an error, and then all I did was rerun it, and now it seems to have gotten past that error. One thing I was thinking about while this was running was that we did not copy in that what config change that it recommended after running one of the, I forgot which one it was, I think it was one of the dynamic steps. So we need to go back and do that just to be on the safe side. I think that's not necessarily required for what we're doing. If we're trying to run all the things that Habitat Home does, we might run into an issue. But I think one of the things that's used for is some sort of external integration, possibly. It's hard to say. since I've never worked with Microsoft Dynamics integrations before. But you can see it's gotten past all the MS builds and done all the transformations of the configs, and now it's gone off to apply the XML transforms, and now it's syncing Unicorn. Now, like I said, I think Unicorn's going to fail the first time. You can actually rerun it. You could rerun just that specific task. So you can go down here to sync Unicorn and rerun just that task, and hopefully it would work the second time. But it's hard to say for sure. I've had more success usually going in and just going to the unicorn.aspx page and just doing a sync all. All right, like I said, it's showing that the operation has timed out. That's exactly what I was saying might happen. So let's just sync Unicorn again. I'm not sure if this will help either. I've never actually tried running it again. Usually I just go right to the unicorn.aspx page and just do a sync that way. It's easier that way. All right, as you can see, it failed again. So like I said, what we're going to do is just go out to Sitecore Habitat SE and do /unicorn.aspx. And actually, we're probably going to need to be logged in. So it's going to take us to a login screen. Not the Sitecore login screen, but a Unicorn-based login screen. All right, I had some issues getting the site to actually load. So what I did is I just went to the Sitecore login page. And went to admin B. I had to recycle the app pool. For some reason, it just would not load. This is probably the reason we were getting timeouts when we're trying to sync Unicorn as well. So once we're in, we can go to /unicorn. ASPX. And now it's saying everything's here. What I'd like to do is so you could manually go through and sync each one of these. What I actually like to do is just do a verb equals sync, and this will sync everything. So it's a really cool, great way to just go to that page, sync everything. If you have no configurations you need to do, no resyncing of or reserialization of any of the items that you need to do, you can just go to the verb equals sync, and you can sync everything. As you can see, it's completed the sync with Unicorn. So we have two steps remaining. The first is going into the web config for the Sitecore site and adding those lines that I had kept forgetting to add. So let's go to Windows, inet pub, www root, and habitat home.se, web config. Open with Visual Studio Code, my preferred editing tool for small things. And hopefully I have it still in my buffer. I do not, unfortunately. Let me get that and paste that stuff in. One thing I can do is, actually that's not an option for some reason. I'll just manually format this. And I'll save that. Retry as a min. And it should be saved. Let me just confirm that. The best way to do this is just reopen it. And there is our changes that we made. So that's the almost last step. Let's go back to this, close this. We don't need these these two items anymore. So what we need to do, since we have a different host name that we're using for this, what we're going to need to do is, if you go to the just Habitat Home, you're not going to see the site because you're going to see the default start screen for Sitecore. And that's not what we're looking for. What we need is the Habitat Home site to show up. See, now we have this. This is not correct. We want the actual site to show up. So what we're going to do is go back to Sitecore. We need to log in, admin B. I'm not going to worry about remembering it just because we're just going to do a short little quick step here. And here we are. We're going to go into the content editor. And then we're going to go into the Habitat Sites. Habitat Home is what we're looking for. And we're going to go into Settings, and we're going to find the setting for site grouping. Open up that, Habitat Home. We're going to select that option. And we're going to find the host name, use star as a wildcard, and pipe to list more values, but we're just going to change this to habitat home.sc. We're going to save. Now, the next step we need to do is just publish these changes. So I'm going to actually publish the entire site, since it doesn't always happen after a unicorn sync. All right, for some reason I always seem to get this error when I do a publish with this project. I'm just saying that the item adding event, there was some sort of issue, probably something that's not working correctly. So I'm just going to ignore this, and hopefully the rest works. So exit out of that. So the next step is really just going to that site. So a new incognito window, home.sc. Okay, I'm getting some sort of strange error, and I've actually, before I ran this demo, I actually tried installing it and I got the same error. So it looks like there's an issue with some sort of a Habitat logo inside the Habitat media area. I'm not sure why that would be. It sounds like if I go back to just publish Habitat Home, essentially, it will work just fine. So let's do a republish on Habitat Home only and see if it will publish the correct things. Some said that if I use a newer version of Sitecore 9.0.1, then I don't get that issue. I'm not sure. Still getting it. So I don't know. It's hard to say what's causing it. I'll continue to diagnose. Hopefully I can figure this out. But if not, then you guys might have similar issues when you go to install. Next, my next attempt is they reported that it was Habitat logo that's causing the issue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually delete that item. You know, it's probably a bad idea, but so I'm going to go to Habitat, Media, Habitat logo. Or I can actually maybe also just make it so it can't be published. So we'll make sure it doesn't publish. And now I will do a publish site. All right, that seemed to work by just disabling the publishing of the Habitat logo. Now it seems to have published. So let's go and check to see if this is working now. And there we are. We have the site loading finally. So if you run into that issue where you either have issues publishing or you have issues where something is missing from your web database, then I would say the best bet is to disable the publish of the Habitat Home, or actually it's just the Habitat logo from publishing. You can either delete it or you can just make it so it doesn't publish it. And once you do that, then you're able to see the Habitat Home site. And that concludes today's tutorial. I plan on doing some tutorials on casing certain aspects of Sitecore using the Habitat Home site, but that's later in the future. If you have any issues, feel free to reach out to the Sitecore Slack or the Sitecore Stack Exchange, and I'm sure there's people there that can help you with that, or you just leave a comment and I can see if I can help you with that as well. And that concludes it, and good luck with the installation.